Welcome to the Amateur Traveler Video Edition. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Continuing on with the story of the cruise that we did last fall, our next port of call was Aruba. But rather than just spend the time around the town of Aruba, we decided to do something a little more adventurous. So we took a shore excursion with Aruba Kayak Adventures, booked through the cruise company, to go sea kayaking. There was a group of people, also adventurous, who went together on this particular outing, along with a couple different guides. This is also the first time I got a chance to use my new underwater video camera, which is a Sanyo Xacti camera, and I'll put details in the show notes. So we started by paddling along the shore, using muscles we don't usually use, to an area where we could go snorkeling. Just because the camera is waterproof doesn't mean it won't get wet. When we got there, there was a quiet little cove where we could tie up the boats. And this was at a park that was popular with locals as well. And then we donned our snorkel equipment. One interesting thing I found about using an underwater video camera is when you're standing in the water, it's hard to keep the camera still when you're standing in water that is moving back and forth. And this was an area where there was actually a pretty decent current. But we had our basic instruction in terms of how to contact the guide and how to clear the mask and other sorts of things you need to know before you go snorkeling.
There's a needlefish. Awesome. Oh. It's big. Now we got it. Yeah, it's big now. Yeah, look at that.
And then we headed out. Now, when you're snorkeling in an area that has coral, you always need to be careful because coral can be very sharp and you can cut yourself. But the extra added bonus here in Aruba was this fire coral with the light edge on it. If you touch fire coral, you are taking home with you a souvenir, a little bit of a scar from Aruba. And so as you're bobbing up and down in the current here, you're having to be careful not just to be worried about getting close to the coral, but being close to the fire coral. As far as snorkeling goes, this wasn't a particularly great area for snorkeling. You'll see that the visibility gets worse later on, but there is brain coral and fire coral and some small fish. The video that I'll show you next week was actually from Curacao, as a much better place to go snorkeling. But this was still a wonderful time to try out the camera to start with. You can see as we get out towards the surf is stirring up the bottom, and so the visibility actually got to be fairly poor because we're in an area of active surf. Someone has found a sea star, and now it's time to pack up our snorkel gear and get back and try out those muscles that were still sore from the way out and paddle back towards the place where we started, which is right next to the oil refinery. So it wasn't the most picturesque spot. Again, the most picturesque spot I'm saving for the next video. And thanks so much for watching. Check out the rest of the audio and video shows at amateurtraveler.com.